One of the most powerful things you can ever do in a relationship is to stop trying to control what you cannot control and start mastering what you absolutely can yourself. Most people think getting someone back is about sending the right text, making them jealous, or some manipulative tactic. That's noise. The real shift happens when you reclaim your power and your sense of self-worth, because nothing, and I mean nothing, is more magnetic than a person who knows their own value and lives it unapologetically. When you're hurting after someone pulls away, your nervous system wants to chase. It's biology. Your mind says, if I close the gap, if I do more, maybe they'll come back. But every time you act from fear or desperation, you're broadcasting one message: I don't believe I'm enough. And people respond to that energy. It pushes them further. The counterintuitive truth is that stepping back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, shift the entire dynamic. It's like it's alignment. You're telling the world, my worth isn't dependent on your validation. That is profoundly attractive. Psychologically, this is about attachment and self-concept. When your identity is wrapped up in the presence or absence of another person, you're essentially outsourcing your sense of safety and meaning. That's a dangerous place to live because it makes you reactive. But when you anchor into who you are, what you value, and what you deserve, you stop reacting and start choosing. You move from being a pawn in someone else's story to the author of your own. And people feel that difference immediately. It's in your tone of voice, your body language, the way you enter a room. This is not about arrogance. It's about returning to center. Think of it this way: a lighthouse doesn't chase ships. It stands tall, steady, and bright, and the ships find it. That's you when you reclaim your power. You become a point of clarity in someone else's confusion. And ironically, that's exactly what draws people back. Because deep down, we're all looking for someone who feels safe, grounded, and self-assured, not someone who is lost in our wake. Reclaiming your power also means taking radical responsibility for your life. That can be uncomfortable. It means looking at your habits, your self-talk, your environment, and asking, where have I been giving away my energy? Where have I been tolerating less than I deserve? It's about upgrading your standards, not as a punishment to someone else, but as an act of love toward yourself. You're no longer waiting for someone to choose you, you're choosing yourself. And from that place, every decision you make radiates confidence. There's a philosophical dimension here too. Think of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius wrote about controlling only what is within your control. Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's the heart of this principle. You cannot control whether he comes back today, tomorrow, or ever. But you can control the energy you cultivate, the life you build, and the meaning you attach to this moment. When you shift from grasping to creating, you're no longer waiting for a reunion to feel whole. You're already whole, and that wholeness becomes irresistible. And let's be clear, reclaiming your power is not a tactic to manipulate someone into returning. It's a transformation. It's the foundation of every healthy relationship, with yourself first and with anyone else second. The beautiful paradox is that when you genuinely embrace this, you stop needing the outcome. And that's exactly when the outcome you once wanted often starts to unfold naturally. Because neediness repels, self-sufficiency attracts. As you step into this new posture, you'll notice subtle changes. You'll speak slower and with more certainty. You'll say no without guilt. You'll start doing things not to get a reaction, but because they light you up. That's your power returning. And whether he watches from afar or up close, that energy registers. It says, this is someone who knows who they are. And people want to be around that. They want to be close to that. One of the most misunderstood concepts in relationships is detachment. People hear the word and immediately think it means coldness, indifference, or some kind of emotional shutdown. That's not what we're talking about here. Detachment, in its highest form, is a discipline of freedom. It's the ability to hold love without clinging, to care deeply without losing yourself, to give someone space without feeling like you're disappearing. And paradoxically, it's one of the most powerful attractors you will ever possess. When someone pulls away, the natural instinct is to close the gap, to text, to call, to demand clarity. It's a nervous system reaction rooted in fear of loss. But every time you move from fear, you reinforce the belief that your well-being depends on another person's behavior. That is the very energy that erodes attraction. What truly flips the script is when you can remain present, calm, and even loving while simultaneously allowing space. That's not passive, that's strength. That's you showing that your sense of safety does not rise and fall with someone else's proximity. Psychologically, this is about self-regulation. If you've ever studied attachment theory, you know that anxious and avoidant patterns often trigger each other. The more one reaches, the more the other retreats. Detachment breaks that loop. It signals the other person's nervous system. I'm safe. I'm not chasing. I'm okay. That calms their defenses and makes connection possible again. In other words, detachment is not a wall, it's a doorway. It removes pressure from the interaction so the other person can approach freely rather than from guilt or resistance. Philosophically, you can see echoes of this in almost every wisdom tradition. The Bhagavad Gita talks about acting without attachment to the fruits of action. The Stoics taught about indifference to externals. Buddhism frames it as non-clinging. In all of these, the core lesson is the same: hold life lightly. Love fully, but don't grasp. When you do, you stop living in a constant state of if only and start living in a state of presence. That presence is gravity. It draws people, experiences, and opportunities towards you without effort. Practically, how does this look? It starts with awareness. The next time you feel that surge to text, call, or fix, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I acting from love or from fear? Love gives space. Fear clutches. Then redirect that energy inward. Go to the gym, call a friend, build your business, meditate, read anything that re-anchors you in your own life. Every time you do that, you're strengthening a muscle. You're teaching your nervous system, I am safe in my own company. I don't need immediate reassurance to feel whole. And something interesting happens when you practice this. Your communication becomes cleaner. You're no longer reaching out to get, you're reaching out to give or to share. You're no longer reactive, you're responsive. The shift is felt on the other side. Suddenly your messages land differently. Your voice carries calm authority instead of tension. Your presence feels like a choice, not a plea. That's what makes detachment magnetic. It tells the other person, I'm here because I choose to be, not because I have to be. Choice is attractive. Freedom is attractive. This is not a tactic to manipulate someone back. It's a way of reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. It's also the only way to build a healthy foundation if and when they return. Because if you've trained yourself to need constant proximity or validation, the moment they come back, you'll squeeze again, and the cycle repeats. Detachment breaks the cycle not just temporarily, but permanently by transforming you from the inside out. You become someone who can love without losing themselves. So when you find yourself tempted to react, remember your calm is your power. Your space is not emptiness, it's an invitation. It gives both of you room to breathe, to reflect, to choose. It allows the relationship to grow from desire rather than obligation. And if he does come back, he's coming back to someone stronger, steadier, and more centered than before. Think about this. A tree with shallow roots needs constant watering. A tree with deep roots can withstand drought, storms, and seasons of distance. Which tree do you want to be? Detachment is how you deepen your roots. It's not the absence of love, it's the presence of self-mastery. Remember, the point is not to stop caring, it's to stop clinging. Love from fullness, not from fear. And when you do, you don't just increase the likelihood of him returning, you elevate the quality of the connection itself. And every other area of your life benefits too. Hold this thought as you move forward. The space you allow is not a void, it's the proving ground where respect, desire, and genuine choice are born. Practice detachment not as a tactic, but as a way of being, and you'll find that what's meant for you no longer needs to be chased. It arrives. So if you wanted to come back 100%, as the title of this talk says, start by coming back to yourself. Start by walking back into your own life with full presence and ownership. The goal isn't just to get him back, the goal is to get you back. Because when you do, everything else, relationships, opportunities, respect, starts to orbit around you differently. You become the center of your own gravity again. Remember this, you are not an option waiting to be chosen. You are the chooser. You are not a satellite, you are the star. Stand tall, reclaim your power, and watch what happens next. If there's one thing that can change the entire trajectory of a relationship, it's the decision to transform yourself. Not superficially, not for show, but from the inside out. Because when you transform, the energy you bring into every interaction transforms with you. People feel it long before they consciously notice it. They sense a shift in your presence, in your voice, in the way you move through the world. And that is infinitely more compelling than any line you could say or any strategy you could use. Most of us think about glow-ups in a purely external sense, new clothes, a gym membership, a better haircut. Those things matter, but they're only a fraction of the equation. Real transformation starts at the level of identity. It begins when you decide who you're going to be independent of anyone else's approval. It's a shift from how can I impress them to how can I express the fullest version of me. That's when the glow starts to radiate. It's the byproduct of alignment between your inner world and your outer expression. Psychologically, this is rooted in something called self-efficacy, the belief in your own ability to influence outcomes. When you're stuck in heartbreak or waiting for someone to return, you often feel powerless. Your life starts to revolve around their choices, their responses, their timing. Transformation flips that. Every small change you make, a daily workout, a skill learned, a boundary honored, tells your nervous system, I crave agency. The growing sense of agency rewires your posture, your tone, your eye contact. It's a broadcast of quiet strength that people find irresistible. There's also a deeper, almost spiritual dimension here. When you invest in your growth, you're signaling to life itself, I'm ready for more. The world tends to mirror back the energy you emit. When you show up expanded, opportunities expand. When you show up diminished, opportunities shrink. That's not mystical because it's behavioral science. People treat you according to the standards you embody, not the standards you talk about. When you elevate yourself, you unconsciously raise the standard of every relationship you're in. This is why self-transformation and self-care are not acts of vanity, they're acts of self-respect. They're also acts of attraction, but not in the manipulative sense. Attraction is a natural consequence of vitality. If you're eating well, moving your body, feeding your mind, pursuing your passions, your life force increases. That energy is visible, it's audible, it's contagious. Someone who might have taken you for granted before now looks at you and thinks, something's different. And it is. Not because you change for them, but because you evolve for you. In practical terms, ask yourself, if I weren't waiting for anyone, if I weren't worried about anyone's opinion, how would I live? How would I dress, speak, move, create? Then start living that way now. Take the class, launch the project, travel, redesign your environment. This is your life. Fill it with things that make you come alive. That's the real glow up. And here's the paradox. When you stop transforming as a means to an end and start transforming as an expression of who you are, you often end up attracting exactly what you once chased. And more, this process also creates resilience. Because even if the person you're thinking about never comes back, you've built a self you're proud to inhabit. You've created momentum that no one can take from you. That's freedom's power. That's what allows you to engage in a relationship from choice, not from need. And that's the only place a healthy, sustainable connection can come from. Think of it like tuning an instrument. If you're off key internally, everything you play sounds strained. You can try to adjust the audience, the room, the acoustics, but the real shift happens when you tune yourself. Suddenly the same notes you've always played ring out clearer and richer. That's what self-transformation does. It tunes your energy so that your life plays in harmony. And people want to be part of that music. So as you stand at this point in your journey, don't ask, how can I get him back? Ask, how can I get me back at the highest level? Make your life a place you're excited to inhabit. Make your growth so undeniable that whether or not he returns, you're already winning. Because when you're lit up from within, you stop being a satellite and start being a star. And stars don't case, they shine, and the right orbits form around them. Carry this with you. Transformation isn't a performance, it's a practice. It's the daily choice to live as the person you know you can be, even before anyone else sees it. Do that, and you won't just increase the chance of someone returning. You'll increase the quality of every moment of your life. If you've reclaimed your power, practiced real detachment, and transformed yourself from the inside out, you've already changed the playing field. But all of that work won't sustain itself unless you translate it into how you communicate and what you allow. Because this is where strategic communication and boundaries become the bridge between your inner work and your outer reality. It's not enough to feel strong, you have to speak and act from that strength. Otherwise, the old dynamics sneak back in, and you find yourself repeating the same patterns with a new version of you. Most people misunderstand boundaries. They think a boundary is a threat, a wall, or an ultimatum. In reality, a boundary is simply clarity about where you end and another begins, what you will accept and what you will not. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about controlling your own. They are not weapons, they are guardrails, and they make love safer, cleaner, and more respectful on both sides. Strategic communication flows naturally from this clarity. When you know your values and limits, you don't have to perform, manipulate, or over-explain. Your words become simple and direct. You stop talking to convince and start talking to inform. You're no longer trying to get a specific reaction. You're expressing a reality and allowing the other person to respond however they will. That shift in intention is felt immediately. It carries authority without aggression. It's the difference between pleading and leading. Psychologically, this is the stage where self-respect becomes visible. Every time you answer a message without urgency, every time you say no without guilt, every time you calmly restate your expectations instead of exploding, you are showing both yourself and the other person that your emotional state is self-generated. That is enormously attractive and stabilizing. It signals maturity, and maturity is magnetic. Philosophically, this is about congruence. Congruence means your inner world and outer expression match. You're no longer sending mixed signals, acting independent but speaking in a needy way, or acting calm but harboring resentment. You've integrated, and integrated people are rare. They stand out. They're trusted, they're respected, they're desired. Because you know exactly where you stand, other people can relax. They no longer feel manipulated or confused. That safety is what allows deeper connection to grow. Practically, what does this look like? It looks like answering a text after you've finished what you were doing instead of abandoning yourself to respond instantly. It looks like stating what you want clearly instead of hinting or testing. It looks like being willing to walk away from a conversation that turns disrespectful rather than escalating into drama. It looks like giving a direct eyes or no without apology. These are small moves, but they are massive signals. They say, I am not here to control you, but I am also not here to betray myself. That combination, freedom for them, self-respect for you, is irresistible. And here's the paradox again. When you no longer use communication to manipulate, you actually become more persuasive. Because persuasion isn't about clever words, it's about authenticity. People will feel when your words match your energy. They feel when you're anchored. That resonance draws them closer without you even trying. This is why so many people notice a shift in their relationships once they start setting boundaries. Not because they're pushing anyone away, but because their clarity creates respect, and respect creates desire. This stage is also your safeguard. Even if he does come back, your boundaries prevent you from slipping back into old habits of over-giving, over-explaining, or over-accommodating. They ensure the connection rebuilds on healthier ground. Without them, you risk recreating the very dynamic that led to distance in the first place. With them, you give the relationship a chance to grow up, and you give yourself the dignity of being met as an equal. Think of your communication and boundaries as the architecture of your new life. You've poured the foundation with self-worth, detachment, and transformation. Now you're building the walls and doors that will protect and sustain it. You're not shutting anyone out. You're creating a space where real intimacy can happen because it's built on honesty and choice, not obligation or fear. So as you move forward, don't just focus on what you feel. Focus on what you say and what you allow. Let your words be clean. Let your actions match your standards. Give the other person freedom, but give yourself dignity. In that space, if he returns, he's not coming back to the old dynamic. He's coming back to a stronger, clearer, more grounded you. And that is the only version worth returning to. Hold this thought. Your communication is the outward expression of your inner evolution, and your boundaries are the proof that your evolution is real. Speak with clarity, act with integrity, and watch how not only he, but life itself begins to meet you at a higher level.